just for being born. I was just a boy punished for a crime that was not mine. Life ain't so easy when
Hello, hello, hello. And thank you so much for tuning in to A Spoonful of Comfort. Thank you so much for tuning in to WHPR TV 33. I am Claudine Jackson. I am your host for A Spoonful of Comfort, which is to remind you and me that these are troubling times in the world. So those of us who have a little comfort should be sharing our comfort. My wishes for you for the year, may 2019 be the best year you've seen. May your wishes come true and may good things happen for you. May your efforts be blessed because you're doing your best. May you bring sunshine and not rain and have pleasure and not pain. When I was teaching, we were taught that we brought the weather into the classroom. We were taught that if we brought sunshine into the classroom, that it would be a sunny day. But if we came in all cloudy and thunderstormy, that's the kind of day we would have. So it's not just in the classroom, it's in life. Take your sunshine with you wherever you go, even if it's just a smile and a kind word. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for the privilege of your time. I greatly appreciate you taking time out from your day to sit down and watch A Spoonful of Comfort. I greatly appreciate R.J. Watkins and Henry Tyler for giving me a voice, and I appreciate the fact that they have kept this station going for all these years. You talk about Black History. For Black History Month, they are one of the top Black History things for us to remember. Um, I also want to talk about the Michigan Chronicle. Okay, this station, WHPR TV, was started over 40 years ago, and it's located at 160 Victor in Highland Park. And it is an honor to be included with along their broadcasters. Also, another longtime institution is the Michigan Chronicle. It's our black newspaper, and I know that it has been around for more than 70 years. I'm not sure exactly when it started. I've been reading it for 50 years, but the Michigan Chronicle featured a column that I wrote the first week of February in that issue. It was called Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. Age ain't nothing but a number. It all depends on how you feel. Even though I'm moving slower, everything I do is twice as real. I borrowed those lines from a song that was being played when I celebrated my birthday many years ago. And it helped me to feel young, and it still helps me to feel young because age ain't nothing but a number. I wanted to mention to you about the 20 grand reunion. We're going to have another 20 grand reunion. I haven't finalized the time. The place will be Bert's Warehouse again. Last August, we had a 20 grand reunion that was very successful. And hopefully, all of you people that came out then will come out again. I would love to see you and to be able to talk to you. So I'll be keeping you posted about when the 20 grand reunion is going to be. Um, I'll also keep you posted of when my next item for the Chronicle is going to be because I'm going to write something else for them. So as a retired teacher, if I did not talk about Black history during Black History Month, I would feel remiss. And I want to share some of the Black history uh, things with you, such as our history coming from Africa started in Dakar, Senegal, at the door of no return. Dakar, Senegal is the westernmost point of Africa. The door of no return. Over 1 million slaves passed through there. And we went to Goree Island, and from there we were sent to America. And if you get to go to the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, you will see the slave ship exhibit, which is something to see. It wasn't like traveling on a ship now. We were in the bottom of the ship, laying down, spoon fashion, packed in as many as they could get. And that's how we got here. So a lot of our ancestors didn't make it because they didn't have the strength for that crossing. So those of us who are here, that's one of the things I want you to recognize from history, is that our ancestors were some of the strongest and the healthiest, because the weaker, unhealthy ones didn't make it. So we should be proud of our ancestry. And if you can get to, so after we got to this country, of course, we were slaves. If you can get to the Detroit Historical Museum, there's a wonderful exhibit there, which is the Underground Railroad. And that's when slaves were escaping. The first slave was bought here in 1619. And in the 1800s, we were still slaves because we weren't freed. Abraham Lincoln freed us in 1863 with the Emancipation Proclamation. But the Underground Railroad was slaves who were escaping north to freedom. Harriet Tubman was considered a conductor on the Underground Railroad because she knew the way north. And Detroit was one of the main stops on the Underground Railroad because from here they could cross the river and be in Canada. So Detroit has a rich history. And if you see the exhibit at the Detroit Historical Museum, you will be taken on a trip as an escaped slave going through the Underground Railroad. And it's extremely interesting. It's extremely worth seeing. And that's at the Detroit Historical Museum. And should you go to the Detroit Historical Museum, I hope you will go to the Kid Rock Music Lab, which is also there. And the Kid Rock Music Lab has Detroit music history in there. And my husband, Purvis Jackson, who is the bass singer of the Spinners, has some items there. A gold record, a Grammy nomination, a couple of pictures, and information. So I'm very proud that my husband is a part of Detroit history and a part of music history. And I'm so thankful that history is being preserved. And I think it's important to preserve Black history because if we don't, who will? It's extremely important for us to talk about our ancestors because we know we have it rough nowadays. So you can imagine what they went through. Dr. Don Shirley, who I hadn't heard about. This is some African history that I heard about recently. And there's been a documentary made about it. And Carol Kane wrote an article in Sunday's Free Press about the Green Book. And the Green Book was written by a Black man named Victor Hugo Green. And in that book, he let Black people who were traveling down south know which hotels, which restaurants, which rest stops welcomed Black people so that we could be safe in our travels. And I thought that was amazing that this had happened and I had never heard of it before. But on February 25th, there's going to be a documentary on the Smithsonian Channel about the Green Book. And there's a book about it and a movie about it. And the Green Book was very important to help Black people navigate the unfriendly South. I discovered there were also towns there called sundown towns, where Black people had to be out of the town before sundown. That was amazing. And all this was going on during the 60s. Well, I was saying that during the 60s, I couldn't understand the marching, and I understood why Martin Luther King had the marches, but I was raising little kids and I didn't have time to leave my home, and I couldn't understand how people could take the time out to do that. So what pushes them to do this? Well, what made me understand is I went to the Atlanta to the Martin Luther King Memorial. I was in Memphis at the Lorraine Hotel where uh, he was assassinated, and they've got that room all preserved and blocked off. And I still didn't understand. But one night while I was in Memphis, one of the other spinner wives and I decided to go next door. We were hungry. There was a hotel next door that said, there was a restaurant next door to our hotel, and it said food, drinks, fun, pizza, chicken. It named everything they had, all welcome, all of that. So we went next door to the restaurant and weren't allowed in. You had to walk down these stairs when you entered. So we were walking down the stairs, and this man was rushing to get to us before we got to the bottom of the stairs. So I thought he was a maitre d' and was coming to seat us. And when he reached us by the time we got to the bottom of the stairs, and he told us we could not come in. And I said we wanted to get something to eat. He said, well, you can't eat it here. You can get something to eat, and you can wait for it. He pointed to a little table way in the back. Said you can wait for it at that little table, but you can't eat here or get a drink. And, you know, immediately I got this feeling, this is how they felt. This is how they felt. I was not allowed to come in because of the color of my skin. So that's one of the things that brought it home to me, just how people in the South felt. And I grew up in Pennsylvania, and during the 40s, and there was a lot of places that black people could not go to. Well, to me, that's just the way it was. There were 4 theaters in the town, but only one theater allowed black people. Another theater allowed black people, but you had to be at the very back, at the top, separated. There was a skating rink. Black people were allowed to skate one day a week. And there was a hotel that the rule was the only way you were going to get in that hotel was to work there. So I experienced a lot of discrimination. And I think our young people nowadays don't know what our ancestors went through to get things to the point where we feel like we have freedom now, because we didn't always have freedom. So it's important for those of us who remember those times to bring it up and let folks know that, let our younger people know what we went through. Now, you didn't know what a lot of black people did, but in 1909, the NAACP was started. It was started to help black people navigate the pitfalls of where we weren't allowed to go and all of that. And the uh, the NAACP is still alive and kicking. And in 1926, Carter Woodson started the Black History Month. Now, Carter Woodson was he was a scholar, a historian, teacher, and he started Black History Month. So it's amazing, and they say that they started Black History Month in they say it's in February because Abraham Lincoln, who freed the slaves, and Frederick Douglass, who helped Abraham Lincoln understand the plight of the slaves, that their birthdays are in February. So they say that's why February is Black History Month. But it's important for us to remember our history. It's important for us to acknowledge what our ancestors did, because they paved the way for us. And we have a lot of people of our race, African Americans, black folks, who don't understand their history. And that's one of the reasons that we're not getting a lot of success from some area of the people. But look, we were freed in 1863. Before that, we were not allowed to read. We were not allowed to go to school. Frederick Douglass learned how to read because his master's wife taught him secretly. And he even wrote books after that. But the fact that we could not read and we could not go to school, and now 150 years later, we have black people, teachers and doctors and lawyers, and it's amazing all that we did accomplish. So I am so proud of all that we accomplished. I'm going to take a short break, and when I come back, I will share some more Black history with you.
When I was 17, I ran away from home and from everything I had ever known. I was sick and tired, living in a town filled with narrow minds and hate. They used to laugh at me, their children called me names. I would run and hide, feeling so ashamed just for being born. I was just a boy, punished for a crime that was not mine. Life ain't so easy when you're...
Thank you for sticking with me for a spoonful of comfort. Some of the Black history people, our ancestors that I wanted to make you aware of, one is Garrett Morgan. Garrett Morgan invented the traffic light and the gas mask. And the gas mask became very important. He has saved a lot of lives because of that. But there were 32 men in an explosion under Lake Erie. There was a tunnel below Lake Erie. And 32 men were rescued by people using gas masks that Garrett Morgan had invented. So thanks to Garrett Morgan, we have the gas mask. Alexander Miles was another brilliant black person. He did not invent the elevator, but he invented a lot of the features that the elevators have, like the opening and closing of the doors and protecting the elevator when it was between floors and all that. So Alexander Miles did all of that. Lewis Latimer was another. Lewis Latimer did not invent the light bulb. We know that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, but Lewis Latimer invented the carbon filament that goes inside the light bulb. And you know, that's what lets our bulbs last a long time. So it's just amazing that these people had the intestinal fortitude, the intelligence, the drive to accomplish things that have made the world a better place. Dr. Henry Sampson. Dr. Henry Sampson invented the gamma electric cell. And because of the gamma electric cell, we have cell phone technology. Without his invention, we would not have cell phones. We've got Dr. Charles Drew. Dr. Charles Drew came up with a way to save blood plasma, and he was the originator of the blood banks. And he did a lot. He saved a lot of lives with the blood plasma and the blood banks and all. But on the battlefield. They were able to take blood to the battlefield. Before Dr. Drew, they weren't able to do that. But what happened is, after Dr. Drew found out that they were segregating white people's blood from black people's blood, he resigned from his office with them. And I don't know how true this is. Maybe somebody can find out and let me know. Um, I heard that Dr. Drew was refused admittance when he was ill. He was refused admittance to the hospital that could have saved his life because he was black. So Dr. Charles Drew was not able to take advantage of what had so many people that he had saved. He was not able to save himself. Dr. Drew, these are just some of the names of the people that I want us to remember. Madam C.J. Walker, I mentioned her before. I love Madam C.J. Walker. She was the one that did a lot for black women's hair. She made lotions and potions and things to help us deal with our hair. And she became the first black millionairist. The first black millionairist. Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker helped survey and lay out the city of Washington, D.C. He was one of the originators of the way the Washington, D.C. is laid out. He also wrote an almanac. So he is someone that we should remember. And I mentioned Paul Laurence Dunbar before. Paul Laurence Dunbar is, I credit Paul Laurence Dunbar with starting my love for poetry. He started writing poetry as a slave and got books published. It just amazes me that he got books published as a slave. I want to share one of Paul Laurence Dunbar's poem with you. I've shared it with you before, but it's one that I think is so fitting to describe him. It's called A Negro Love Song. And I'm going to read it in dialect because that's what he wrote it in dialect. Remember, we weren't educated back then. A Negro Love Song. Seen my lady home last night. Jump back, honey, jump back. Held her hand and squares it tight. Jump back, honey, jump back. Heard her sigh, a little sigh. Seen a light gleam from her eye and a smile go flitting by. Jump back, honey, jump back. Heard the wind blow through the pines. Jump back, honey, jump back. Mockingbird was singing fine. Jump back, honey, jump back. And my heart was beating so that I didn't want to go when I reached my lady's door. Jump back, honey, jump back. I put my arms around her waist. Jump back, honey, jump back. Raised her lips and took a taste. Jump back, honey, jump back. Love me, honey, love me true. Love me much as I loved you. And she answered, of course I do. Jump back, honey, jump back. Now, that poem is still just as alive now as it was back when Paul Laurence Dunbar wrote it. Another poem that Paul Laurence Dunbar wrote that I love so much is called The Party. This was the first poem I learned to recite as a little girl. The Party. They had a great big party down at Tom's the other night. Was I there? You bet. I never in my life seen such a sight. All the folks from 4 plantations was invited, and they come. They come trooping thick as chillin' when they hears the fife and drum. Everybody dressed their finest? Hush your mouth and get away. Ain't seen no such fancy dressing since last Quarthy meeting day. Gals all dressed in silks and satins, not a wrinkle or a crease. Eyes a battin', teeth a shining, hair brushed back as slick as grease. And I said it's a long poem, so I won't read you the whole poem, but that was one of the ones that Paul Laurence Dunbar wrote. And we have other black writers, and I really respect them and admire them because I consider myself a writer, and if somebody is reading something that I wrote 200 years from now, that would be magnificent. Of course, one of our more recent Black history poets is Maya Angelou. So I want to share her poem with you, Still I Rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moon and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds sparkling in my eyes? Out of the huts of history and shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide, I rise. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Thank you so much for tuning in to A Spoonful of Comfort. I hope to see you next Tuesday, or hope you see me next Tuesday at 1:30 right here on WHPR.
When I was 17, I ran away from home and from everything I had ever known. I was sick and tired, living in a town filled with narrow minds and hate. They used to laugh at me, their children called me names. I would run and hide, feeling so ashamed just for being born. I was just a boy, punished for a